Welcome to the podcast An Ancient Language for a Modern Soul, Poemi Conviviali by Giovanni Pascoli. Today we listen to two poems called Ate and Mother. They both belong to the section in Poemi Conviviali called Poems of Ate. The third one in this section is The Courtesan, which we discussed in episode 14 of this podcast. In Greek mythology, Ate is the goddess personifying recklessness, folly, and moral blindness. And these concepts feature prominently in Greek tragedy, where characters make terrible mistakes when prone to this madness and are punished for them. My guest today is Dr. Akrivi Taousiani, who teaches classics at King's College London. She's an expert on Greek tragedy, particularly on Sophocles, on aspects of theatricality and performance, political thought, and the evolution of morality. She's also a colleague of mine, and I'm very happy that she's here today as a guest of this podcast. The poem Ate is read by David Carter. The music is by Giovanni Tardini, who plays the celesta, while Arianna Mornico plays the harp. Mother is read by Ali Harmer, and the music and harp accompaniment are by Mark Harmer. So welcome, Akrivi, and thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Elena. It's so great to be here with you.
Fantastic. So today we will listen to two poems, the first called Ate and the second called Mother. These are two different stories, but what they have in common is the fact that the two protagonists, two men, make a fatal mistake. And this mistake has dire consequences for them. So this mistake stems not so much from a conscious decision on their part, but from recklessness, from blind folly. These two men are possessed by Ate. So before we listen to the first poem, I'd like to ask Akrivi to introduce us to Ate, a goddess personifying, as many Greek divinities do, a state of mind. Maybe we can start from the etymology of the word Ate.
Thank you again, Elena. It's really hard, I think, to not have a tragedy with Ate. So I think it does make perfect sense to delve into the linguistics of it to start with, and then try and decode its meaning. So Ate does come from the verb ateo, which means to be reckless, to be foolhardy, and you will be very unsurprised to hear that it has a Proto-Indo-European root, like most of ancient Greek and Latin, and obviously other sort of languages have. In this particular case, and you need to forgive me for the pronunciation of this, it's the version that we can reconstruct. Reads as something like Nahata. So this ha and the ta sort of brings together the sense of, first of all, eater, right? From eo, obviously in Latin to go. But with the negation of the a, you get the not going, or if you like, the being lost while you go. Mm-hmm. So a sense of, losing your way, right? Mm-hmm. Not going in that particular respect. So it's really, I think, unsurprising that you find that I don't think, I'm actually not exaggerating, because I have, I've looked up the instances of the word Ate in the tragic opus and beyond. Unsurprisingly, all three tragedians are full of it. It is everywhere, and I'm really excited to talk about Ate in the Oresteia in more detail.
Excellent. So you said that Ate is pretty much everywhere. So in which Greek authors do we first find a mention of Ate?
Again, I'm not going to make you guess, but I'm absolutely certain because obviously you have classical, you're an expert yourself, so you don't actually need me here. You can give these answers.
I
do. Yes, I'm not going to make you guess, but you absolutely know who it is. It is Homer. So it is in Homer where we have the first instances of the word ate. And the first thing that I find striking is that you find ate and its variants 20 times in the Iliad and 5 in the Odyssey. Right. I hope that, in the remainder of the talk, we can talk about why. But again, ate is everywhere. It's in lyric poetry. I mean, it is obviously in Hesiod, but then Archilochus, Theognis, Pindar, pretty much everywhere, going down to Plutarch. I won't give you the whole list, but essentially take us to the Byzantine years and beyond. It does change its meaning, and in fact, I would say that you have a variety of meanings already in tragedy, let alone in different genres. And this is another thing that I'm really interested in, and I'd like us to, to try and decode what is the spectrum, right, of art. I will focus on tragedy. You have absolutely the blindness, like the moral blindness, and the logical blindness. You can't see, remember, they're not going. So the characters cannot go. They are stuck. They think they know where they're going, and they don't. And then, of course, ate focuses or comes up as a precursor of the hubris. And hubris is where everything goes wrong because you make wrong decisions and everything goes pear-shaped, essentially. And there has to be some kind of a dramatic event that will bring catharsis and the order is restored. So ate is definitely has a meaning of a blindness of the mind and the soul, but it does, and again I find that interesting, even just in the Oresteia, but in tragedy as a whole, also features as an expression of distraction. So ate is, yes, distraction. Ate is also a curse, which I think becomes very relevant if, you're focusing, again, on all tragedies, but especially the Oresteia as a trilogy. It is interesting to see how each author deals with ate in all these different variants of meaning. But blindness is the one that I would choose as the most defining one.
Let us now listen to the first poem, Ate. This is the story of a warrior, Mecistius of Gorgo, who has committed a crime and is forced to flee his city. I always say in this podcast that Pascoli never invents his stories and characters, but in this case, he simply takes the name Mecistius from the Iliad, where this name belongs to 2 Greek warriors. None of them, though, are from Gorgo. So in this case, Pascoli just picked a Greek name and built a story from scratch. A story that very much reads like a Greek tragedy, and in particularly, we are reminded of the Oresteia. So, Ate.
Oh, how he ran from the city of doves, Mecistius of Gorgo, to pale green fields of barley and to tall alder trees pierced by the shrill sound of cicadas. He fled from Messa, green city, which burnt in uproar beneath a snow-white flock of doves. He left the fields and the trees, entered a wood which was full of magpies. With a heavy heart, his chest empty, a lump in his throat, and his ears ringing. But with his chasers gone, he stopped, his veins ablaze with thirst, yearning to dip his blood-stained hands into a stream of cold water. A battalion of croaking frogs sang of water in the wood. Cloudy water, spotted with yellow roses and white water lilies. Mecistius heard the song, lustily sung by those raucous singers, and followed their grouchy sound to a swamp, which bloomed with yellow roses and white water lilies. As he came, the croaking ceased. He heard the water splash and gurgle. He dipped his hands in the swamp and rinsed both his bloodied hands, and when he had washed both his hands, he cupped them, filled them with dripping water, and drank. Death-black water, reeds like red streams of blood from a wound, swollen dark roses and lilies. Mecistius left the swamp with its blood-stained roses. He went away from that place, and as he slowed his pace, he noticed someone walking behind him. One step was fast, then the next, a briefest echo of the first. And he shivered in horror. His heart shuddered at the thought that this was not the uneven dripping of blood into blackened waters, nor the croaking of the frogs. No, he knew it was Ate. The old Ate the cripple who followed his every step. He didn't look back, he ran, his ears filled with whistling wind. The footsteps came, clip-clopping, the same uneven footsteps mixed with raucous panting, not like the sound of a man chopping wood on a cliff among rough howling winds. Ate, the old, the cripple, followed him on his track, fast, inexorable. Out of the wood he ran the rocks, jumping from stone to stone like a stag, and after each jump he heard himself shout. Clip, clop, that uneven step still there, always that echo, until he reached the highest cliff, from which you could hear the river bellow deep inside the valley. Mecistius then turned around, to fight like a boxer, his fists clenched. He punched the air, jabbed, backed away, and fell headlong off the cliff. And as he fell, he saw her, Ate, still standing there on the edge of the cliff, her head among the flowers, her face creased with ecstatic laughter.
Scholars have said about this poem that there are echoes of Aeschylus, particularly the trilogy Oresteia, devoted to Orestes. We know that Orestes was the son of Agamemnon, and Agamemnon was the king who took the Greek army to Troy, but in doing so, to do so, Agamemnon had to sacrifice his daughter Iphigenia. So Clytemnestra then kills Agamemnon upon his return, and then Orestes avenges his father Agamemnon by killing Clytemnestra. And obviously Orestes is very much under the spell of Ate. So Mecistius finds himself in an anguished state of mind that reminds the reader of Orestes in Aeschylus' tragedies. Over to you, Akrivi.
I would certainly love to, and thank you, Elena, because, again, it is impossible to think about Ate and not think about the Oresteia. And I can prove it to you with numbers, which I love. If we, obviously, Ate is not simply, doesn't simply... So when we talk about Ate, it's not just the appearance of the word Ate, but if you want to look it up this way, you find that Aeschylus uses Ate 49 times, 30 of which come, you guess, from the Oresteia, right? And he's, in fact... there is, in his corpus, we find the highest concentration of the word Ate and its variants. I think it's really telling that Ate really dominates that trilogy. So I think it's wonderful that you're making this association. And I should say I'm by no means an expert in Pascoli, so I'm really led completely, by your expertise. And I really relish the chance to try and get to know him and to see, his Orestian roots. So going back to Ate and Orestes, right? And the blindness of the soul. I would say that I want us to use that opportunity to look at Orestes, yes, as a troubled man, absolutely. But what kind of blindness are we talking about? Let's decode that meaning if you want to follow me down that particular road. So Orestes obviously doesn't, feature in person in the first part of the Oresteia, which is the Agamemnon. But Ate does. Massively. So I think, yes, I do remember it correctly. It's, I think, just 18 times, 15 times that you find the word Ate in the Agamemnon. And Ate is all of these. It has all of these different meanings already there. The blindness, the destruction. Clytemnestra says, well, Agamemnon deserved it. Deserved these Ate. And Cassandra predicts the Ate. The chorus is scared about the Ate. And of course the killing happens. And I'm very tempted to go off a tangent and say that, in the major scenes, you don't find the word Ate on the carpet scene, which I find fascinating. Why on earth there's no, sense of the dooming of the doom, of the impending doom? You find it before and after, but to focus on the Ate and Orestes, yes, Agamemnon is full of it. So even before Orestes come on stage, we have seen that the Ate has found him. And the chorus despairs, says, how are we going to get out of this? And obviously in the Coephony, which is the second part of the Oresteia, we get Orestes. And he's there, and I think that's what really interests me, like as a kind of academic interest. So yes, he's there to take revenge, but let's think about him in relation to Ate. How blind is he, if you want to look at it this way? So he has, and hear me out on this.
I will.
So thank you. So he starts, and he's very confident. He's a young man, comes in very confident, and he does say, I am here, I have arrived, I will avenge my father. But he also says, Apollo really is making me do it. In the sense that, the gods are absolutely with me. And it's not just, that they're with me. If I didn't do it, there would be all kinds of curses and diseases and ulcers. The whole description is very biblical. If I didn't do it, right? I do want to do it, he assures us, because I'm grieving, but also, to top it all off, I've been reduced to poverty by a pair of women, right? Women meaning his mother and her lover. And, he finishes in a dark note. We'll see how much of a woman that man is. And obviously not going into the gender sort of stereotypes here, but you see there's so many different motivations, right, behind his Ate. So he reminds me a lot, and you will see why I'm making that parallel, of another young man who is making a journey. It is Neoptolemus in the Philoctetes, who is my first love. I have to come out as a disclaimer. Neoptolemus, also a young man, on a literal journey with Odysseus, saying, Odysseus comes out and says, I know you're moral, I know you're Genaios, you're brave, but you have to deceive. And he says, no, I'm not doing that. That's not me. But then Odysseus says, you will get the kleos, the glory, right, if you do it. And he thinks, well, glory is good. Why don't I compromise myself for one day and do this? And what I find interesting in both cases is you're talking about, or you're looking at two young men with a purpose who, to me, they're almost overcompensating. They're coming in and saying, you know, I am right, I am do this, I'm going to do this. But you can feel, even in that confidence, that cockiness, that there is something disturbing, something that doesn't agree, if you like, with their values, their morality. Orestes is harder to I think, convey that. Neoptolemus did say from the beginning, this is not me, I'm not doing it. And of course, he changed his mind. But even Orestes, which again I find fascinating, quite early in the plays, line 435, he says, oh, let me only take her life, then let me die. Which is a very dramatic statement to make. Why die? If this is, you know, if you're so convinced about the justice of what you're doing, why end your life on this? And you could say, yes, this is caught up in the moment, it's an exaggeration, but we all know we don't say things accidentally. There's always a meaning, right, behind that. And the meaning obviously becomes clear when, you know, you have the famous, exchange between Orestes and Clytemnestra and his mother. When she has seen Aegisthus dead, she's realized what has happened. Orestes is there to say, well, I will kill you, you will die. And she bears her breast to say, you need, you know, show pity to this breast that nursed you. And, you know, this is the crux, this is a pivotal moment for Orestes. And he has this, what is called the tragic aporia. In a literal sense, what will I do? Which is exactly what Neoptolemus does when Philoctetes, who has been so nice to him and wonderful, and he calls him my son and my child, plead to him, take me away from here. And Neoptolemus just can't fool him anymore. He can't. So he says, Ti draso, what shall I do? And you see that moment of, as I say, reckoning for both young characters. They have a similar journey, if you think about this. Neoptolemus is an easier one. There is obviously, you know, a peripeteia there, lots of debates, but they all, you know, Philoctetes is convinced, they all go to Troy, glory awaits. Orestes does kill his mother. When Pylades, he asks Pylades, what shall I do? Should I spare my mother out of pity? And he says, no, remember Apollo, remember what the god ordered, anger everyone but not the god. And he does it. And this is obviously precisely the moment when the Furies come.
I'm also glad that you brought up young men and mothers, because that also takes us to the other poem, which is a poem about a young man and his mother. And it's called Mother. And in this poem, the male protagonist, Glaucus, has offended his mother by slapping her, and her heart cannot withstand the pain this causes. So the poem says, and thus she had to die. And when she dies, the demon that leads all souls to the underworld dips her 3 times into the river Lethe to make her forget the world and take her up to the sky, to the top of the world. So the reference here is, as you well know, is Plato, particularly the dialogue Phaedo, where we see a cosmological theory of the earth and the pure sky above it, where all good souls ascend after death, something that we think may have influenced Christianity, but that is a story for another episode. So while the mother ascends to the sky, Glaucus is thrown deep into the Tartarus, a pagan hell, described both by Homer and Plato in the Phaedo. So in this description of the Tartar, there are also many echoes of Dante's Divine Comedy, obviously. It seems that the punishment for offending his mother, for slapping her, is extreme, but I seem to remember from my reading of Aeschylus, and now you're going to tell us about it, that the power of ate is stronger for crimes committed against kin, as it is the case here.
You are absolutely correct. There is, I don't think there is anything more worthy, if you like, of punishment than any kind of hubris or any insult to your family, to your oikioi. The philoi, as you know, philos, yes, is your dear one, and oikios is your own. And oikos, obviously, is then the family. We know that there was a driving principle in the 5th century, hence in tragedies as well, was the helping your friends, harming your enemies, since the famous publication of that. But you're absolutely right. Harming not just the philos, not just an oikios, but a mother really deserves in the Greek psyche the harshest of punishments. If you think, and it was interesting to me to think about this, that you have, on the one hand, you have what I find it almost funny, to be honest, Euripides' Alcestis, right? Alkis the Alcestis, where Admetus is dying, and he's expecting his mother, his parents, to sacrifice themselves for him, as you would do for your child. And his father says, no, life is too nice. I am just, you do your thing. You can lose your life, it's fine. And only his wife, Alcestis, comes in to take his place. So you have that end, which, to be honest, is quite unusual. I don't think Greek tragedy should be judged by that. Of course, I'm oversimplifying, but yes, it's almost a comic interlude to what is a very established theme, which you get in, again, every single tragedy. I would say the most fundamental is obviously Oedipus. And, the perversion of that relationship and the absolute doom and disaster, the pollution, the miasma that it brings in the whole city of Thebes. But also another it's really difficult to find the right word for it. A genealogy of crime towards family is very much part and parcel of the Oresteia. And I'm talking about the curse of the House of Atreus. It's impossible to really understand any of the three plays without understanding the curse that runs through the family in an almost literal sense. I can take you, I know obviously you know these stories, but I think it's worth just taking a minute to run through the curse, to understand what it means to be violent towards an oikios. And what repercussions that brings, right, to the person, to the agent of the violence. You start with Tantalus, who is unbelievable how he thought, that this would work out. Of course, these are stories that a Greek audience is very familiar with. And there's a lot of scholarship as to, whether a tragedian came up with it. I don't believe that they did. I believe with some scholars that they were the history. As you know, mythology was history, right, for the ancient Greeks. So you have Tantalus, who is so clever that he wants to test the gods. And how he does it is by serving his own children to the gods. only, Demeter is preoccupied because she's lost Persephone, so she has a shoulder of Pelops. All the other gods understand it. They send, understandably, Tantalus to Hades. Pelops gets a beautiful ivory shoulder. He survives. He's the only survivor of this atrocity. And then Pelops, he grows, he wants to get married. He finds a beautiful Hippodamia, but her father Enomos doesn't want to let her go because, again, there's oracles involved in losing power. So Pelops promises his bride, right? His bride's first night to Myrtilus, who is the charioteer of her father, who loves her. And he says yes. He compromises the king's chariot. Pelops wins. He doesn't keep his promise. He pushes Myrtilus off a cliff. He dies. Myrtilus curses him right before he dies. So the second generation of a curse. Then you get Pelops' sons, who are Thyestes and Atreus. They fight with each other in the usual, again, tragic trope of brothers that want to rule. And as an aside, Thyestes sleeps with Atreus' wife. So Atreus, as an act of vengeance, also kills Thyestes' children and serves them to him in an unbelievable repetition of that familial past. And remember, this is a grandson imitating essentially the grandparents' hamartia, right? And Thyestes obviously doesn't understand at first. He has it, presumably eats them, and then when he's told what happens, he also, curses, essentially, obviously, Atreus. He finds out, Thyestes finds out that the only way to beat Atreus is, and, that I will give a trigger warning for this, is to have a child by his own daughter, which he does. He attacks her. She doesn't know who her attacker is, and that way Aegisthus is conceived. So Aegisthus then wants, obviously, to get rid of Agamemnon, also sleeps with his wife, as we know, and together the pair of lovers kill Agamemnon. So Orestes, if you trace down that curse, has four generations of Atta that have been visited, his genealogy, his family line. He's the one to break the curse. How does he break it? By killing. He kills his mother, the ultimate sin, and I think it's crucial that it's a mother that he kills. The mother who, again, shows her breast to him. And he still does it. And that's why he has to suffer.
Yes.
And he immediately loses his mind.
Yes. Ate again.
With the Ate.
So very interesting.
So I think this is why, in a way, and not to be anticlimactic, I think just slapping your mother when I've given you this cycle of horrific violence doesn't merit, such a horrible punishment. But I do think that Pascoli was tapping into a really established, if you like, driving force of you cannot harm your mother.
Yes.
That bond is too, and I tried to sort of educate myself a little bit about Pascoli, and I understood that he lost his father early on, his mother also later, but quite early, and he clearly, that imagery of violating family was an impossible hamartia to him.
Absolutely. So let us listen to the poem Mother.
Glaukos, drunk with oblivion, slapped his saintly mother, and she could not bear it, much as she tried. Her heart could not bear that slap on her meek and mournful face. Her heart, so consumed by so many sorrows, broke, and thus she had to die. Fast and sudden, the good demon came, more solicitous than a mother's last thought. He took away her sweet, blessed soul, lifted it up, stole it away, and dipped it 3 times into the river Lethe, whispering softly, "Forget, forget, my good soul. Your pain was too great, too great." And he made her ascend to the top of the world, a place of more light, more beauty, more God, into the peace of the heavens, wherefrom no soul ever returns to the sorrowful earth. But her son fell headlong down and deep into a dark abyss underground. His grave cast as deep inside the earth as the sky which shone on it was high. He was in the darkness, carried around by a large and turbulent mass of water hanging inside the infinite void. And when the earth swung from side to side, that great river surged, slapping the walls of the earth with a crashing sound of thunder. Glaukos' soul drowned in the water, dragged and hauled to and fro against the earth's walls, or sucked down into absolute darkness at the sound of a reckless rumble in a long and ageless time. Once a wave surged and threw him into a crevice. It stranded him inside a cave by the roaring shore of a dark, ravenous river flowing in the abyss. There was crying everywhere. A gloomy cry, the cry of the dead. Tears shed in vain, tears of the lonely, licked away by the earth's sickly worms. The blackened river of forgotten sorrow carried Glaukos to the Acheron swamp, a dark limbo between land and water of wandering souls cleansed by death, who will one day return to a body when fate will summon them back to the earth. Glaukos saw the souls there waiting on the thick mud of the thunderous shore. With a shout he called his mother. "Mother, I hurt you. Mother, I slapped you. Mother, I made you cry, but I come to you now by the river of eternal tears. Mother, I killed you, but I am dead too, your child, deader than you. Yes, I hit you, but look how hard this water hits me and throws me against the hard rocks in the darkness below, and how dark, how shrill, how filled this place is with tears. I now regret being born. Mother, have mercy. Mother, forgive me. Let me come up. Just say the word. I will be good, I promise, now and forever. I will not hurt you again. Look, the waves come to take me. Forgive me, quick. You were good to me once, mother of mine, but I see that death has changed you now. So he begged her, her son. The wave caught him, stole him away, claimed him, and lay him down flat upon the shore of the river of tears, which gurgled in vain and poured him into the void. And there it sucked him into its secret vortex. Glaukos' unholy soul was caught inside the ageless waters, swallowed and beaten down in the darkness below. But she, holy, was seated in heaven, where there's more light, more beauty, more God. Serene, her doleful cheek still resting in her hand, and lulled eternally gently by the great ether sea, by the far and almost inaudible rocking of the worlds below. Then she removed her hand from her cheek and listened. The good demon came to her. "Drink," he said, "from the river Lethe. Drink some more, since you had not had enough." She meekly drank, her abundant tears falling down from her eyes to the waves. While the demon held her head down gently, he whispered, "More, drink more, more, since you have not had enough." She meekly drank, her abundant tears falling like rainfall into the Lethe. But all that water just wiped the memory of any evil done to her, and she rose. "I hear my son cry," she said in tears. "Take me to him." The demon consented, for a mother's heart is stronger than any god. He accompanied her to the world below, to the Acheron swamp down below. She walked around on a bed of seaweed. She walked around on the thick muddy shore, jumping at every wave that rolled ashore, listening to the roaring of tides and the desperate cry of the dead souls from all the red and black rivers. Finally, Glaukos landed by a cave, washed ashore by a sobbing wave after sailing down on a river made of black waters down underground. It carried him up to the Acheron swamp, where he shouted loud and called his mother. "Mother, good mother, whom death has now changed, mother, I hurt you, mother of mine. Mother, I killed you, I, your son." But her cry came before his, ringing louder from the muddy shore and over the waves. "Dear son, my creature, it was not my will to die so sudden, so soon. I should have forgiven you sooner. It was nothing, only a joke. Return to me, forgive." And Glaukos returned to the earth. Mother and son returned to the living earth, she to bleed, he to wound.
And in Mother, the ending is quite surprising because we see that the son, from his place in the Tartarus, implores his mother to rescue him. And although she has drunk from the water of the river Lethe, which is the river of oblivion, she can still hear her son cry, and she feels pity for him and wants to give him another chance. So, and because a mother's heart is stronger than any god, as Pascoli says, Glaukos' mother gets her wish, and both she and her son go back to the earth, she to bleed and he to wound. So motherhood, as you said, Akrivi, you got this right, is a very Pascolian theme. And there is much to be said about how important mother figures are to this poet and how female figures in general are always placed at the threshold of life and death, granting passage in and out of this earth and into life. And as it is the case here, Glaukos' mother gives him life not once, but twice, before life and after death. And we must once again think of Plato's Phaedo as the source of this passage. But of course, I agree that Pascoli taps into this very rich tradition of tragedy that you've just narrated to us. So, but in Plato, souls reincarnate into bodies, and when they keep repeating the same mistake over and over again. So again, we have a mistake that is repeated across generations and across lives. A mistake that is caused by ate, as we said, the blind folly that obfuscates what is most human in all of us, which is rational thinking. And I think we had a wonderful exploration of Greek mythology, and I really want to thank Akrivi very much for this conversation.
Elena, no, I'll thank you. I had a wonderful time. Thank you so, so much.